I want to start by giving you a bit of a big picture view what actually going on with you and your porn use. And then I want to get really clear on what to do when the urges hit. Because if you go into quick porn, you need both the understanding and the tools. So here's where we're going today. First, I will talk about the difference between your life and your porn use. And second, I explain what an urge to what porn actually is. And finally, I break down the step by step of how to actually overcome urges when they come up.
Here you can see in the note. First, I will talk about the difference between your life and porn. They are not the same. Second, I explain what an urge is. Third, how to overcome those urges. So I'm going to walk through those three parts pretty quickly. I got an outline and a few notes here, so if you see me glancing down, that's why. Now, one thing I think is really important to understand right off the bat is this. Porn use is a symptom. It's just one way of dealing with life. We all have these lives we're trying to manage. Stress, pressure, boredom, loneliness, and then we try to quit porn. And it feels impossible to stick with the plan. Right? We think, why can I not just stop? Or why do I keep going back? And here's something I come to believe is really powerful. It's not that quitting isn't sustainable. It's that our lives haven't felt sustainable without the buffer of porn. And so the way that I work with you is not to have you fix your life and then the porn use disappears, because that's very challenging to do while you still have the buffer of porn. What we do is we take out the porn and every space that we need help on in our life reveals itself to us. And then we work on that, okay? So people will say to me, it's very difficult for me to stop watching porn. And the reason it's difficult is because you taking away the buffer and you not handling what's left. That's also why people relapse. Not because they are weak, but because they don't know what to do with what shows up once porn is gone. So the reason it won't be as difficult this time. And I'm not saying it won't be, but the reason it won't be as difficult is I'm going to help you with what's left when you don't have that buffer, okay? So the first step is really to separate out your regular life from your porn use. A lot of people will say, well, you cannot just remove porn like you would with alcohol or drugs, right? It's not a substance. It's not physically addictive in the same way. But I don't find that to be true. I find that there's a huge distinction between living your life with presence, handling emotions, stress, boredom, relationships, and using porn as a way to escape or check out. So I want to make sure we separate those out really clearly. This is my porn use behavior. This is my buffering, my unconscious coping. And this is my life without it, okay? And distinguish those from each other is going to be really powerful for you. I have a quote here. It says, when you stop watching porn, you are left with the truth of your life. And I really started to understand this once I took porn out of the picture. What was left wasn't amazing. It was restlessness. And that was the truth of my life. And I couldn't work on that. I couldn't even see it until I took away the thing that was covering it up. So it is an interesting truth, and talk about authenticity to be in the space of realizing, oh, this is what's really going on in my life when I'm not buffering with porn. And the reason life hasn't felt sustainable without porn is because you haven't learned how to manage what's underneath it. So now we learn to manage the restlessness without porn. And once you can do that, you can move forward in your life without constantly struggling to hold yourself together. Here is the other thing I want you to remember, and this is so important. There is never a time when you are out of control, okay? There's this big theory in the addiction world, and I've been researching and studying a lot of it while building this program to help people stop watching porn. And there's this big debate. Is addiction, like alcoholism, overeating, or porn, a disease? Or is it a choice? So there's a lot of benefit in calling it a disease, especially when it comes to alcohol. If it's a disease, then we're not just locking people up who actually need help. And it means treatment can be covered by health systems. So that framing has been really useful in a lot of ways. But one of the examples that get used to show that addiction is also behavioral, that is also involves choice, is this. If I were to put a cupcake in front of you, you might feel like you have no control, like if it's there, I'm going to eat it. And I've been there. I felt like I was doing something against my own will, like I had no control. But I want to offer you is, if someone put a gun to your head and said, do not eat that cupcake, you would stop. And the same is true with porn. You may feel out of control. You may feel like you cannot stop yourself. But if someone said, don't do it, not now, not here, and your life depended on it, you would find a way. So that shows us you do have control. Even though you might not feel that way, even though it might feel like you are out of control, you never out of control, and it's always a choice. Every time you watch porn, it's always a choice. So I have students say to me, well, how do I stop watching porn? And I don't want to make it more complicated than it is. You just stop and then you deal with what comes up. It's discomfort, it's urge, it's tension in your body, it's restlessness. Yes, I know it's easier said than done. That's why I created a guide to help you process those urges. Indeed, you will learn how your brain has been conditioned to seek porn and how to work with those urges instead of fighting them. So this is the guide I'm holding on my hand. This is totally free, no worry. So there are 3 ways people usually deal with urges. You give in, you let it control you, and your life keeps getting worse. Number 2, you resist. You try to use willpower. Maybe you win for a little while. But eventually it builds up. And you use porn just to get relief. Imagine just like when you're angry, but you try to use willpower to push the anger down. But through many times, it finally explodes one day. Number 3, you process the urge. And that's where the real freedom is. If you want to know what it really means to process an urge and exactly how to do it, read the documentation. There's a video that walks you through every step so you can start experiencing real change in your life. Check the description of this video to see how to get it. Because at the end of the day, it's whatever feeling shows up that makes you want to go back to porn for relief. And what I'm going to teach you is how to stop. Literally stop. Know that it's a choice. And then deal with what's left. Because what's left is important. You just haven't been trained on how to deal with it, okay? So that's my first point. You have to separate porn from your life. You have to know the difference. Know when you turn into porn for something other than genuine desire, other than conscious decision making, other than to sustain yourself. And for us, what that look like as we go through the program is asking, am I showing up in my life with presence and clarity? And if not, porn becomes the buffer. And that's what we stop doing so we can finally start working on our lives. Now, what's the obstacle to doing that? What's the main thing that gets in the way? The first one we run into is just unconsciousness. And I talked about that before. It's just not paying attention to what we're doing. So we don't realize we're reaching for porn. We don't catch it in the moment. We just go in autopilot. But once we do know what we're doing, once we recognize, oh, this is an urge, a lot of us still experience strong compulsions to keep going, to keep using. And that I want to offer you is this. Urges, those feelings of compulsion to watch porn, are just habits. That's it. They are not signs that something is broken in you. I think there's a lot of misguided advice out there when it comes to what it means to have an urge to use porn. People take those urges to mean something is wrong with them and that their brain is messed up, that they're weak, that maybe something from their childhood, some trauma, something deep they don't even understand. And because someone else doesn't have those same urges, they assume they are the damaged one. They even start to demonize the urges, call them evil, blame it on bad spirits, dramatize them. And there's so much noise out there, and it makes you feel even more broken. And I get it. I felt that way too. I remember moments where I felt this deep pull towards stimulation, this need for more. Why my friend, they just didn't. Like, how are they fine without it? How are they just able to stop? Why I feel like I cannot? And here's something I learned through the research. Some people are more sensitive to dopamine. Some brains are more reactive to that reward hit. And that would explain why certain things feel harder for you than for someone else. So the point is here. There's nothing wrong with you because you have urges. The urge itself is just a habit. And the reason you developed it may be because your brain is wired to respond more intensely than someone else. That's not a flaw. That's something we can work with. Now, having a more sensitive brain to dopamine isn't useful to know unless we also know, okay, then how do we manage that? It's helpful in explaining why porn became a struggle for us and maybe not for someone else. Maybe we genetically more sensitive to rewards. That doesn't mean we're weak. It just means we are wired a little differently. But still, what do I do with that? Does that mean I'm screwed, or is there actually something I can do about it? The answer is yes. When you understand how your brain works, it becomes so much easier to manage the urges. So here's a basic framework. You have two parts of your brain. I'm going to oversimplify this so it's easy to stick with. There's your prefrontal cortex, your upper brain. It's the part that makes you human. It plans, it reflects, it thinks about the future. It can watch your thoughts while they're happening. And there's your lower brain, the survival brain, the animal brain. It handles everything automatic like habits. It's fast, it's efficient, and it doesn't stop thinking. The lower brain is what runs your porn habit. Over time, it's learned. Stress equals porn. Loneliness equals porn. Boredom equals porn. Why? Because every time you watch, you got a spike of dopamine. And dopamine is your brain's way of saying, hey, that's important, do it again. Now let's zoom out. Because this whole dopamine wiring didn't come out of nowhere, we need a bit of a history lesson here. For the vast majority of human history, like thousands of years, our environment was nothing like the world we live in today. We involved in foraging, horticultural, and agrarian societies. We hunted, we gathered, we grew food by hand. Dopamine wasn't a problem, it was a survival tool. When we found something rare and essential to our lives, like fat, sugar, salt, our brain lit up. Because those things were essential but hard to find. Dopamine helps us remember them. It helps us to go get them again. That's how we stay alive. But then came the industrial age, the information age, and suddenly fat, sugar, salt everywhere. No scarcity, no effort. And here's where it connects to porn. In today's world, we're not just surrounded by fast food. We're surrounded by digital version of fat, sugar, and salt. Quick sex, quick hits of novelty, quick pleasure. We are wired for survival, but our environment has changed too fast for our wiring to keep up. So now we have fast food chains for our bodies, and infinite scroll apps and porn sites for our brains. Media outlets test combinations of digital stimulation, the same way fast food chains test burger toppings. They're using provocative content to keep your attention and make you crave more. That's not because you're weak. It's because your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's just playing the wrong game. The digital world moves faster than anything physical ever could. And then when you sensitive to dopamine, right? When your brain's reward system lights up more than someone else, you're going to feel that pull more intensely. But again, it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means your brain is responsive. It means it's doing its job. The problem is, it's stuck chasing more in a world that never runs out. And this is why understanding dopamine matters. Because most people don't. They think dopamine equals pleasure, but it doesn't. Dopamine is not the pleasure molecule. It's the molecule of more. It doesn't make you feel satisfied. It makes you chase. It tells you you don't have enough. You need that thing over there, go get it. And when you don't know that's happening, it controls your life. You cannot see the thought process. You cannot interrupt the pattern. You just feel the urge and obey it. When you do understand it, you can start to separate from it. You can say, ah, this is just my lower brain trying to keep me alive. It's misfiring. I don't have to follow it. That's what we're learning to do here. To use the upper brain, your human brain, to make conscious choices. To retrain the automatic patterns. Because, yes, your urges are real, but they are not prophecies. They're not evidence that you're broken. They're just signals, habits, electrical patterns in your brain that can be rewired. And when you stop following them, they lose their power. Unless you live in an environment like ours, where you're constantly surrounded by digital triggers that spike dopamine, your brain's reward system wouldn't be reacting like this. But the reality is we live in a world where provocative images, clickbait headlines, and endless scrolls are everywhere. And every time you click, scroll, or watch, you get a dopamine surge. Your brain goes, oh, that feels good, do it again. Oh, more stimulation, let's do it again. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with your brain. It doesn't mean you're broken or bad. All it means is that your brain is healthy and it's doing its job. It just hasn't caught up to the world we live in. Your lower brain doesn't know that you evolved into a completely different environment. And this is where things get interesting. Think about that. The instincts that once helped us survive, our drive to seek food, sex, novelty, stimulation, those drives are now self-destructive when they constantly activated in a world that never shuts up. Our desire for more, once youthful, is now leading to overuse, addiction, and burnout. So now if you want to keep evolving, we have to overcome the very wiring that helped us evolve in the first place. Isn't that wild? What once kept us alive is now making us miserable. And this is where the brain's structure comes in again. On those automatic thought loops, those urges, those patterns, they come from the lower brain. The way I like to think about it is this. We learn something in the prefrontal cortex, your upper brain, and then we delegate it to the lower brain through repetition. Once it repeated enough, the lower brain takes over. It's like manufacturing. We figure out how to be a product, do all the research and development, get everything set up, and once we knew how it worked, we handed it off to production. And production didn't stop to ask why. It just kept running the system over and over because that was its job. That's what your lower brain is doing. So when it comes to porn, your upper brain didn't plan for this to be a habit. But through repetition, your lower brain picked it up and said, cool, I got it. I run it for you on autopilot. That's what an urge is. It's just your lower brain doing what it thinks is helpful. And if you have a more sensitive brain, one that responds strongly to dopamine, it might feel even harder to interrupt. But again, that's not a defect. It's just sensitivity, responsiveness. Your brain is paying attention. So now what happens is this. You see something that triggers desire. You have a thought, I want that. That thought creates a physical urge, a craving, tension in the body. And you standing at the crossroads, you can take action and go follow the urge, or you can pause, sit with it, let it pass. And if you don't act on the urge, your lower brain is going to have a fit, like a toddler with a knife. It's innocent, it's not evil, but it can be dangerous if it goes unsupervised. And just like toddler, it will throw a tantrum if it doesn't get what it wants. It will say, come on, just one video. You're tired. You earned it. This is just how you are. But the lower brain isn't trying to ruin your life. It's trying to save it. According to ancient, outdated rules. Because like what I said in the past, things like food and sex release dopamine to help us survive. That was the point. Dopamine was a signal that said, this is important, repeat it, remember it. But now dopamine is everywhere, and your brain, which evolved in scarcity, is stuck in this digital flood of abundance. It's screaming, repeat, 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 at things that are no longer serving you. It thinks the next scroll, the next video, the next high stimulation moment is life or death. And that's how we get caught. Not because we're weak, but because our brains are running ancient code in a modern world. And this is what we call a thought error. It's when your lower brain sends an automatic message that feels urgent, but isn't actually true. It's just a leftover survival mechanism misfiring in a world it was never built for. Catherine Hansen, in one of her books, calls urges neurological junk. Because that's what they are. They are thoughts that only keep resurfacing because the brain has been wired over time to produce them automatically. They are not signs of truth. They are not meaningful. They are not proof that something's wrong with you. They are just neurological byproducts of a habit loop that's been run too many times. They are brain-based junk. That's it. And I love that framing. It's like your brain has built a little machine that constantly pumping out junk messages. You need to watch porn, come on, just one time. This is urgent, you feel better if you do. Something like that. And in that moment, you have to decide. Are you going to use your human brain to override your animal brain? Because your lower brain, the animal part, generally believes this is urgent. Just like a toddler in a store believes they will literally die if they don't get the candy bar. And just like with that toddler, if every time it has a fit, you hand it the candy bar to keep it quiet, guess what happens next time you go to the store? Another fit. And the time after that, another one. Because now you trained it. Scream equals reward. And it works the same with your brain. If every time your brain throws a neurological tantrum, an urge, you reward it with porn, that urge pathway gets stronger. That system gets more efficient. The signals get louder, more frequent, harder to ignore. So your option at that point is clear. Don't reward it. That's how you stop reinforcing the pattern. But of course, that is easier said than done, because the moment you don't give it what it wants, the brain freaks out. It's like, why aren't we doing the thing? We always do the thing. So how do you actually handle that moment? How do you stop a toddler from having a fit? Well, at first you don't. The first few times, they're probably going to roll on the floor, scream, kick, flout, and your brain will do the same. It will throw up intense urges. It will offer convincing thoughts. It will sound like, just once won't hurt. You had a long day, you already messed up, might as well. You can start fresh tomorrow. These are thought errors. They are neurological junk. The more you're aware of them, the faster you start catching them in real time. That's why writing down your thoughts, doing what I call thought downloads in my coaching program, is so useful. It helps you recognize the scripts your brain likes to run. And the more conscious you are, the more quickly you see the urge forming before it turns into action. So here's how it works. Step 1, you notice the thought error. Something small like, that video looks interesting. I wonder if there's anything entertaining on Instagram. I just scrolled for a bit, not a big deal. It will sound innocent. It seems logical. But it's just your lower brain trying to sneak under the radar of your prefrontal cortex. Step 2, you feel the urge. That familiar compulsion hits, the tension builds, the craving rises. And at this point, you have 3 choices. So let's walk through your 3 options when an urge hits. Option number 1, you give in. You obey the urge. You do what it tells you to do. And here's the tricky part. At first, it works. You feel that tension in your body, that buzzing in your chest, that pressure behind your eyes. You click, you watch, you finished, and the urge disappears. So you think, well, that wasn't so bad. But here's what really happens. You just train your brain to say, this is how we deal with discomfort. So next time life feels boring, stressful, loneliness, anxious, you will reach for porn without even thinking. And slowly, without realizing it, you start paying a price. You feel shame. You feel like you betray yourself again. You lose time. That 10 minutes turns into an hour. That hour turns into an entire night. You miss workouts. You miss sleep. You miss chances to move forward in your career, your goals, your health. You notice brain fog the next day. You cannot focus. You feel scattered. You feel distant from your partner. Or you're avoiding dating altogether. Real intimacy gets harder, not easier. Your brain gets trained for screens, not real human connection. And the most dangerous part, you don't just want the same hit next time. You want more. Something new, something harder, something more intense. Because that dopamine system is now trained to chase escalation. So yeah, it works, but it works against you. Option number 2, you resist. You try to muscle through it. You clench your jaw, you distract yourself, you go for a walk, maybe even pray it away. But deep down, you're still wrestling with the urge. And now it's not just a craving, it's a mental war. You feel anxious, you feel on edge, You feel deprived. And the longer you resist without knowing what to do with the urge, the more miserable you get. You cannot focus on anything else. And eventually, just to get peace and quiet, you give in anyway. Then comes the shame, the regret, the whole cycle starts over. And now you train your brain again, not just to seek porn, but to avoid discomfort at all costs. This is how you stay stuck. You feel like quitting is impossible. You start to think, maybe this is just who I am. That's why option 3 is the way out. That's where you stop obeying the urge and stop fighting it. You observed it. You allowed it. You watch it without reacting to it. That's how you retrain your brain, without pain, without shame, without war. If you want to learn exactly how to do that, step by step, check this documentation. There's a video that walks you through the entire process so you can start breaking the pattern today. Check the description to get access. Now, if you do that third option enough times, something incredible happens. Your brain starts to notice, wait a second, I'm not getting the reward anymore. I felt the urge. I used to act on it, but now nothing happens. No dopamine hit, no relief. And when your brain realizes that the cycle is no longer being rewarded, the urge starts to fade. It loses strength. Because here's the thing, your brain associates certain emotions, certain times of the day, specific environments, or even internal states like stress, loneliness, boredom, or anxiety, with the urge to watch porn. That pattern was built through repetition. I feel overwhelmed, then I open the browser. I feel disconnected, then I scroll Instagram or TikTok and accidentally end up somewhere else. It's late at night, I'm alone, and that's when I always give in. It's not just about the content, it's about the context. And those associations can feel automatic. But here's the good news. What was learned can be unlearned. You train your brain to expect dopamine in those moments. And now, through repetition, you're showing it. We don't do that anymore. That's how rewiring happens. So your highest human brain, your prefrontal cortex, is the part of you that can do what animals cannot. It can plan ahead, it can make conscious decisions in advance, it can anticipate obstacles and create strategies. It can say no to urges in a moment, even when other parts of your brain are screaming yes. Your lower brain cannot do that. It's automatic, it's primitive, it doesn't think logically. It doesn't think ahead. Its only job is survival. Just like instincts keep animals alive, your lower brain is wired to keep you safe on a very basic level. But that's why it needs supervision from your human brain, because without it, you're not in the driver's seat. The more aware you are of your urges and where they're coming from, the easier it becomes to slow down. Notice what's happening and remember. This isn't actually important. This is just a signal my brain misfire again. Right? You're not in danger. You are not about to starve. You don't need a dopamine fix every 6 minutes. And the more you understand what digital overload does to your brain, what overstimulation, novelty, clicks, and scrolling are doing to your focus, motivation, and long-term fulfillment, the easier it becomes to step back from the urge and say, oh, that's not me, that's just my brain doing what it was wired to do in an environment it was never designed for. And when your human brain understands that, you can calm your lower brain down. You don't have to obey it. You don't have to resist it. You just don't have to follow it. You are always in control. There are always three options when an urge comes up. You give in, which strengthens the habit. You resist, which creates tension and often leads to giving in anyway, and that will reinforce the cycle. You process it. You understand what it is. You stay curious, calm, and in control. That's the true path to freedom. And if you want help doing that, if you want to learn exactly how to recognize, allow, and process in urge, I put together a free urge documentation that shows you how to process the urge step by step. You can download it right now. It comes with a full in-depth video that walks you through exactly what to do in the moment when an urge hits. Check the description to get access. You can ask me anything you want in a comment, and I will see you in the next video.